All right. And just like that, we are back again with another episode of the Mind the Growth podcast. As always, I am Chris Kinghorn.
And I'm Eric Hoffman.
And today we are joined by a very special guest. We have Stratton Andrews with, is it Stratton Architecture?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. We're happy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's actually the first podcast I've been on, so hopefully it goes well. I'm excited.
I'm sure it's going to go great. Well, why don't we just dive straight into this? Can you tell the listeners a little bit about kind of who you are and what your story is like?
Yeah, so we're about a 2 to 3 year old architecture firm here in the Phoenix Valley. We specify mostly in custom luxury homes, ranging, we span right now from Scottsdale, Verdes Valley, North Scottsdale. We're hitting Flagstaff and starting to get up into Colorado and some of those areas too. So we're spreading quickly, and the economy's been helpful the last couple of years, and it's been just a good start to the company.
And how old are you, Stratton?
I'm 30.
Okay, young guy, you and Chris. So with architecture, was this something that a lot of my architecture friends, they were drawing houses when they were like in diapers? Is that your story, or when did you know that this was a path you wanted to take?
Yeah, good question. I mean, architecture's always been on the forefront of my mind since, you're a kid. You're always playing Legos or building forts or drawing or all the above, and a little bit of creativity, a little bit of, engineering and math, and combining those two together and being able to work with clients. It's just sort of a dynamic aspect that a lot of professions don't offer. You're always kind of on your toes. You're always fielding problems, but it also, again, gives you that creativity that a lot of places don't offer. So, I've always had it in the back of my mind. Started in, elementary school and high school, took classes, and ended up at University of Arizona for architecture school. And from there, bounced up to Phoenix, and everything's just, taken off in the valley here. So.
And where are you from originally?
East Coast, from Connecticut, born and raised,
Okay.
and came out for school.
Nice. And what was the U of A like from two ASU grads?
Better than ASU.
Yeah. Good answer.
I actually looked at both schools pretty intensely. Looked at their architecture programs, and looked at their day-to-day life and campus lifestyle, and it was tough. It came down to that paths of programs, length, costs, and just campus life also helped. So it was always fun.
Sure.
Kind of being part of Greek life and sports and everything down there. It was a good community and a good balance.
Did you play sports down there at all?
No, I didn't go. Just did a lot of intramurals and everything with the groups of guys.
Got it.
Architecture keeps you slammed as is. So
pretty busy.
Wasn't really in the cards.
Yeah. And I do have, like I said, a couple of friends who went through the ASU architecture program, and every single one of them said it was way more intense than they expected, a lot more work, and they weren't sure if they were going to pursue it based on the class load, et cetera. Was that a similar experience for you, or how was schooling in terms of the architecture emphasis?
Yeah, I think school was a tough balance, trying to keep up with friends and keep up with the social life. But school was great. I think it taught you kind of rigor and balance that plays kind of well into professional career now. It was tough, and I think we have a couple of ASU grads working for us now, and they're doing great. And actually, one of them played lacrosse full time while she was there, D1. So I'm impressed that she was able to balance, a D1 sport with architecture. I don't know if I'd have that in me, so it's impressive.
Yeah, for sure.
So if we shift kind of post college, then can you give us a little bit of a walkthrough of kind of where you ended up post college, and then really when you finally hit the point of wanting to do this, make the leap of faith and get going on your own?
Yeah, kind of while we were down in Tucson, I had a couple internships while in school at some luxury custom home architects, and that really kind of continued to inspire me and why I'm kind of doing all this work in school and everything, because the profession is so interesting, being able to work with some of these clients and kind of inspire and create their homes that they're so proud of and that we're so proud of. So that really continued to fuel me. And I came up here. I worked for 2 different custom home architecture firms in the Valley and gained a lot of, experience, a lot of good network of people. Then I took on a commercial role as a senior designer at Davis, which was really fun, really interesting. I wanted to, before I fully committed to just custom homes and that kind of that hospitality realm, I wanted to check out what else there was for architecture. So I did that. We did high rises, we did multifamily, we did condos, we did, campus work, a little bit of everything, which was exciting as well. But it also instilled my passion for custom homes. So, I was there. It was a great experience, great learning. But it just reinforced what I wanted to do. And that was, get back into custom homes, getting back in touch with the clients and kind of start the company. So that was kind of the tipping point when I went over into commercial, kind of tested the waters. Great role, great people. Still kind of love communicating and getting back and talking to them. But homes is really where I want to push it and focus.
No, absolutely. So I've got a quick question. I've got a little bit of a construction background, but it's more so on the technical side. So obviously there's a lot of involvement and communication with the owner up front, obviously before ground breaks, and I'm sure that kind of continues throughout the lifespan of the project. But does it ease up a decent amount as you start progressing through the project, or what does that really entail or look like?
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything. It depends on the project. Some of our clients they want full service from, the day we sit down and have our kickoff meeting for 4 more years after, you're there on site every morning and could be. And then there's jobs, whether it's a spec home or a development for a builder that, you can get a little down and dirty and, knock out a project, and it does get turned over to the builder and you're not pushed by the side, but, there's less day-to-day work through construction and that. So we have kind of a really nice balance right now of full-blown custom homes with very high-end clients that want, that service that they're paying for, where you're communicating every day, your weekly logins, everything. And then there's the spec homes that are, very popular right now in the Valley, and they're a little less demanding, I think is kind of what you're getting at.
Right. No, that makes sense.
So shifting a little bit to style, I've had a fascination with homes since I was a teenager. And so in my head, in the early 2000s, like throughout the 2000s, the style of choice, at least here, was like a Tuscan style, heavy on tans and browns and, that sort of thing. And then 2010s up until roughly present, maybe a few years back, the farmhouse was in, and that's what everyone wanted. Now it seems to be kind of a mix of like farmhouse, bohemian, some modern styles. What are you seeing now? And does that even matter to what you do, or what's the style of today in your view?
Great questions. It's funny. Yesterday we're walking like 2 dated Tuscan homes. One was like Larry Fitzgerald's first home in the Valley, and you can see how it was so cool 15 years, 18 years ago, and it's just, they're dark, they're brown, they're dingy, but they're huge. And it's almost funny. It's almost a major problem for Scottsdale and Paradise Valley is what to do with these oversized homes that need a new life. So there's a lot of work to be done on these communities, and it's tough for the buyers to see the vision with that square footage. I mean, we're talking 15,000 square homes, and where do you even begin on remodeling that, and it's tough to tell them to tear something down like that, because obviously they paid a fortune for it. So we're in an interesting time where all that architecture is getting dated and things are new, where we're going lighter colors. And you're right, farmhouse was huge through Arcadia and Scottsdale. And I think that'll continue in those pockets, because there is definite merit and value to that, because, in Arcadia, it latches onto the nature of where that neighborhood came from, which is all, orange tree groves and that whole nature farming there. So it sustains time there. But when you start sprinkling that over the desert in North Scottsdale and, up to some of the DC ranch areas and you're doing farmhouse, I think that's just forcing a style on something that shouldn't be. So I think that stuff will phase out. We've seen the Mediterranean, and then we focus a lot on modern homes, but we're also doing probably 40%, 30% of kind of European transitional homes where they want some of the old world lines on the outside, but we're trying to pick up newer colors, whether it's whiter interiors and new, more contemporary lighting and fixtures, and just bringing everything up. But a lot of people do love that kind of old world charm with some of those homes. So it's a balance of, making more modern homes with making them soft enough to live in. Some people love, the sculptural pieces of contemporary that we do, and some people love going to them but not living in them. So I think it's kind of a balance, listening to the client, hearing what they want to do, and just kind of reading the situation.
All right. So kind of touching back on, yeah, gosh, exactly. So this is super cheesy. I just moved into my new office, but kind of going back, Stratton, what you were saying, kind of the farmhouses and Arcadia and the orange groves. I've got a photo that's going to be behind me. So this is Camelback in 1942, I think it was, and it's just all really just orange groves, and you've got Camelback Mountain in the back. So kind of excited to have that on the wall. But it's being a Phoenix native, it's something that's kind of cool. So you obviously see so many different types of houses, shapes, sizes, etc. What is your preference? What's your favorite type? And I don't know how you want to share that, or if you've got an opinion on it. But what would you want to live in, and then what style do you like building? What do you prefer building?
Great question. So what I want to try to continue to work on and strive for is working on hillside homes, whether you're in starting in Tucson, whether you're in Paradise Valley, Scottsdale. Mesa has some amazing hillside communities as well. And they're challenging. And that's what's so unique about hillside homes. Even we can get into style and whatnot, but the complexities of the structural engineering, the civil engineering, the restraints by the cities, just the codes, everything that goes into these projects are just so complex and so interesting, and takes such a talented team to kind of solve, makes those projects so much fun. And then that's sort of, a place versus a style. So I find that, contemporary work on hillsides, a lot of the glass lines, and so those hillside buyers tend to be, single guys or single, women that are looking for something different. They're not family homes, they're full of amazing art pieces and sculptural pieces that are looking for distant mountain sunset views, as opposed to, some of our Arcadia or Scottsdale large parcels where, you have flat lots and you have a lot of freedom, but it's almost more interesting to solve kind of hillside problems. That's sort of the dream, is to really work and create something special on a challenging site, versus, if you're given 12 lots in, flat Scottsdale, it's just the creativity it's endless there, but it's not as, invigorating, and the end product just isn't as exciting. So hillside and contemporary homes really is what we're going to try to focus on, what we're doing a lot of. We probably have 10 to 15 homes kind of all over the valley right now at hillsides, and it even is translating up to, again, northern Arizona and Colorado, and in areas that see, difficulties and the need for an architect that's experienced in those areas.
So is it safe to say that what is more rewarding, do you think, solving the challenge or seeing the final outcome?
Projects go in like phases of, excitement. You'll have the initial meetings, and you'll have the presentations with, videos, fly-throughs, renderings, and all the emotions there. The client's really excited. That's obviously phase one, the most exciting part. Phase two would be kind of, solving those problems. And that's where, we're behind the scenes working with the cities, the towns, the engineers. And, there's actually an amazing amount of satisfaction working through that, solving some of these things. And they take time, which, some clients just wish everything was quick and easy. But, getting through and solving those problems is just almost as rewarding as, presenting the project themselves. And then phase 3 is, construction, and watching that go up and seeing, just that infrastructure that is required on these projects is incredible. So, start to finish, there's never a dull moment, but it goes in waves.
That's awesome. No, that's a great answer. The clientele that you're working with is pretty high end. What is it like working with more higher end clients?
Most of the time, it's extremely rewarding. Some are more challenging than others, but they come from, all different places of life. And that's the really cool thing is being able to work with these clients, but just hearing their background story, whether they came from nothing and owned auto stores and just continue to work and hustle and, create something, or, it's fourth generation wealth and they're moving here from New York City and, they're used to this lifestyle. So it's fun to sit down with a client, have a beer always to kind of, kick it off and learn kind of where they came from. And if this is their first home or if their 10th home they've done, and there's different routes that you approach each project. If it's their first one versus, if they've done this before. So it's always getting to know the client, kind of reading them, getting comfortable with them, and kind of then starting the project.
No, that's awesome. And just the network effect alone, I feel like you spend so much time talking with these individuals. So I'm sure there's, the relationships that you're building through this have to be positive as well.
Yeah, that's so critical. I mean, if you do your job and you do it as best as possible, one job should lead to another. And that's kind of how we're trying to, start out and make sure we provide the best service we can up front. So, those referrals and those, it's a small city and a small town, and it's a small network of people that are, doing this, but it's all interconnected. And if you just do the right thing and just do your best up front, I think, you should have success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people recognize that as well too. So how many, since you've branched off and started your venture, how many houses have you designed and built?
So yeah, again, we started probably 2 years ago when we phased out of our commercial work, and we probably designed and permitted 10 to 15 homes. We're probably have another 10 to 15 in the works. And then we've broken ground on a good 5+ homes right now. So things are kind of coming out of the ground nicely right now. We have a good pipeline of next probably 2 to 3 years of work kind of lined up. And that's been exciting too, is trying to line up clients long-term too, not just to have, 6 months worth of work, is meeting clients that just bought their lot, that aren't even ready for, another year. So it's about engaging them early and getting them and keeping in touch with them as the projects kind of come to life.
Absolutely. No, that makes sense. Well, and then obviously with the state of the market that we're currently in, a lot of things are looking, potentially like recessionists. Are you seeing any pullback? Is there any sort of market shift that you're seeing? Obviously the client that you're dealing with is, it's not going to be your average individual, but do you see anything softening on your end?
Obviously there's always the talk every day, every meeting we have is, financial forecasts and chats up front, but we haven't, and no projects have gone on hold. We still have just as many developments and spec homes going up, and that's a good barometer of, the customs will go if they have the money and the wherewithal. But if the specs start to go down, that shows quite a fear in the development and the state of real estate in at least, Scottsdale, Ferris Valley. So we're still seeing all the builders are hanging on to their developments and pushing forward, and we have new stuff on the boards going forward. So we feel comfortable enough right now that real estate is definitely a safe enough route to take for these investors. And on the custom side, as I mentioned, everyone's watched the stock market daily, and all these clients I'm sure have lost a lot of money, but no one's pulled back, and they want their dream home, and they've hopefully saved properly for it. So we're having good success.
Awesome. That's good to hear.
So I was going to ask Stratton, with these hillside projects, is the price range, just thinking out loud, between like a $5 and $15 million type of home we're talking about?
Yeah, that's probably a good assumption. Based on the town you're in a little bit. So Paradise Valley Hillside is expensive. It's just the nature of the subcontractors to contractors, the land cost alone, it has to make sense for you to invest that kind of money into the property to get your, even if it is a custom home, just to make sure that you're safe on your investment in the long run. So we advise them on, what purchase price they're at and where is the cap on their property. We'll go out there and make sure they're not putting a $10 million home on a $500,000 piece of property that just isn't financially smart. So we try to guide them on, the best as possible. We know the market, what a good piece of property is, but there's hillsides, again, even in Peoria and Mesa that we're doing, beautiful gated communities with deep views of Lake Pleasant and all those spaces that are incredible out there. People don't even know. And you can do your hillsides, same infrastructure and same complexities, but you can be at that lower $5 million price point versus something that, need more in the 10, 15 in Paradise Valley.
Sure.
So it's location.
With your group, do you institute any sort of like minimums for projects or like clients to take on?
No, we're not that place yet, but a lot of top tier architecture firms do. We're working with a couple firms from around the world. We're actually collaborating with a firm out of South Africa who they've latched on to the ultra luxury market, and they kind of followed some of these billionaires around the globe with their real estate. Mm-hmm. So they've kind of became this group that helps them bring value to all sorts of cities. So we actually have a new project with, again, collaborating with a firm out of South Africa, and they have minimums, very high minimums for some of these guys. So we're their local group on the ground, kind of getting everything together, building the team. But yeah, definitely no minimums over here.
Gotcha. And with your outlook so far, and you may have touched on this a little bit before, but what are you seeing in the next few years in terms of the market? And I want to touch on both the financial side as well as going back to the style side. I know you're looking at the, mountain homes, which have a lot of maybe glass and modern techniques, but if you could make a prediction, what do you think is going to be the in style in a few years, and in Phoenix in particular, since that's where we are, how do you think the market's going to look a few years from now?
Yeah, I'll first touch on style. I think great question. We kind of tracked on the previous styles, but where I see it going, I mean, we saw over the last 5 years that contemporary came on pretty strong. And in my opinion, contemporary is probably my favorite aesthetic. But when contemporary is done wrong, or maybe there wasn't a budget afforded to the project, or the wrong GC was on the project or something, I think it can go horribly wrong. I think it's a bad look for a community and a bad look for, anything. If you have a terrible landscape with a bad home, it's pretty detrimental. So people were steering away from the white boxes and the gray boxes that were done, and they're trying to have the same glass lines and the same, operability that all this new technology has. So I don't see us, circling back to some sort of old world styles by any means, but I see trends trying to soften some of those harsh contemporary homes that have gone up that, even in my opinion, have kind of tainted the idea of contemporary work, and that's almost pushing people back to, whether it's a farmhouse or some of that. So, but I do think, sophisticated buyers and people that love, contemporary work, I think it'll remain strong here in Arizona, because we're different than any other state in terms of, our time we spend outside, inside, our daylighting, and just the way that technology's helped that too. 15 years ago, you couldn't do half the things we could do with glass, HVAC. It just isn't sustainable. But now with, Tesla and solar panels, all this new materials out, I think it's going to be a game changer. And luckily, Phoenix is on sort of one of the forefronts of contemporary work, whether, you're competing with California and a little bit of Denver and Florida work. We're trying to become more of a design focused city, which it's never been. It's been a development focused city in terms of quantity and scale over quality. So I see contemporary work lasting well into the future, and hopefully, we continue to refine it.
So if we shift back to, I'm curious about kind of the partnership that you had mentioned, but not, I guess not necessarily that one specifically, but just as your business plan as a whole, going from when you started to where you're currently at now, and then looking towards the future, what do you see the drivers for business growth? Is it through partnerships? Is it through exposure? Through trophy houses, if you will. What's your vision look like for that?
That's great. Yeah, I think about it, every night. What's the best path to a sustainable, firm that people want to come work for, and hours aren't ridiculous. I mean, architecture has a bad reputation for overworked, underpaid, zero gratification at the end of the day, and I think that's changing. And obviously, we need to push that further, but it's tough because you got to manage your business properly and create the right deals with the right people with sustainable work too, because sometimes custom homes will dry up and you got to be able to pivot, over to maybe it's commercial work or maybe it's hospitality. And I think being able to pivot and work on the fly and have a well-versed background is helpful in that point. But back to kind of partnerships and whatnot, we started out our own firm, then we actually even partnered with Bedrock on a lot of their developments. So we have 2 developments going up, Crown Canyon and Bird Street, which actually hasn't even hit the market yet.
Are those spec or are those custom homes?
Yeah, both are spec developments. And yeah, Bird Street will come out in about a month. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. That's a blend of contemporary homes and a little bit of, cleaned up European, because we saw the market wanting a little bit of both. So that partnership's been huge. That creates a pipeline of work, helps with, portfolio work. And really, if we do our job right and when we enjoy our time together, these are long lasting working relationships going forward.
Oh, that's awesome.
How do you see your job being enhanced by technology these days and into the future? Are you looking into anything like whether it's AI assisting with part of the design or things of that nature? What exists in the architecture world today, and what's maybe on the forefront?
Cool question. It's pretty loaded. The like commercial work, I think there's so much value in some of the new technology coming out with the ability for a developer and an architect to sit down and come up with 15 different schemes to maximize parking efficiently and the best layout for, cost, design, site planning, just a myriad of benefits to the quick planning. It also, technology on my front and everyone's too, has helped keep your teams down. So architecture firms used to be drafting centers, essentially, of hundreds of people working long hours. And now we're able to take on the work. Even just 10 years ago would have taken 10 people. We're probably dealing with, 3. And what that's helping with, I think, is keep the job a little more exciting for the small team. We're able to do so much quantity, and it's quantity with quality. And I think it keeps every day kind of dynamic versus, just the long hours of CAD work or drafting or whatever you're going to call it. So technology is definitely helping, be able to be remote now. Obviously, that's a huge thing. So even architecture seeing that, there's so much collaboration. So it is tough to do that, but we're doing it, and we're doing it well. And then lastly, in terms of, there's 3D, there's software now that like Grasshopper and Rhino that can almost create an AI stuff and create models and things artificially, just like you touched on. And there's a huge place for that in terms of like mass planning, large apartment complexes. I think there's huge value in that. But what we're seeing is with these custom clients, it's just not practical to explore those technologies just because the nature of some of the hillside projects and the nuances that we deal with. So we personally don't push some of the AI stuff and the kind of grasshopper modeling, but we're definitely on the forefront of rendering softwares, 3D visuals. We've looked at having rooms to kind of walk clients through visually with the VR and everything. So we're pushing visuals and presentations and that to the limit. And that's where we're focusing.
One last entry into the design aspect, and then we're going to move on. My dream home is more of like a Santa Barbara style, Spanish tile, that sort of white facade. What is your feeling on bringing some of these types of styles, like from different cultures or different areas, into in a place like Phoenix, where maybe it fits, maybe it doesn't totally fit? What's your view? Should those styles stay where they're from, or is there room for them in other places?
I love Santa Barbara, so at least you're latching on something we can get along with. I think Santa Barbara also is a dynamic style that, again, it resonated in California, so it offers a lot of glass and a lot of, steel windows. There's just a lot of character to it. And it has, your clay tiles. So there is a place and a feeling of it's not out of place in the desert here. And who's to say what's even the right architecture for the desert, whether Frankfurt Light coin, desert prairie or whatnot. And we follow that. Maybe that's the truth, maybe not. But I don't like, when I try to sit down with clients, I don't try to say, this is what style I do. I think every style can be done to the best of their abilities, as long as you take a creative twist on. It's all about recreating the wheel and replicating homes that were done 200 years ago, as long as we're trying to at least enhance the design we're doing in front of us and enhance the neighborhood and the curb appeal and just the client's, experience with the project. I don't think there's a right or wrong. And then there's the whole, HOA world that will tell you what to do. But
yeah, unqualified people telling you how to design a home. That we could have a whole podcast on that.
Exactly. Stratton, so outside of work, what do you enjoy doing?
So this past year's been nothing but work. I think, as I mentioned earlier, we're trying to really set a good foundation for, things to come. And I think that's through, it's all about building the foundation, the relationships now, and getting off the right foot, ensuring our first jobs and our clients are completely satisfied. And then, we can look long-term, because I want to create an office and a culture that, it's not a terrible grind, and there is work-life balance that it's tough to find in this town with architecture. So this year's been a grind, and it's going to continue probably for another year until we feel like we really got our foundation going. But outside, my wife and I would try to get away, go up north, get away with our dog. We're going to go out to San Diego for a long Memorial Day weekend. We're at that age with a million weddings, so it's just travel, work, and, try to get out in Old Town when we can.
I think did you mention that you're currently working on a house for yourself in the PV area?
Yeah. We bought in December too. We found an old cool mid-century home up in the hills. So it was really exciting. Got a cool hillside project for me to work on. But it's tough timing with work. I'm trying to do, so we renovated and redid our last home, and that was kind of a pleasure. And we're doing it here again. So we're about halfway done. And that's a whole other podcast too, where we get into construction materials and delays and that whole world. But we're running into that, even with all our connections. It's just a daunting task.
Is there a certain flair or style that you're doing within that house, or?
So our roof lines was a really cool kind of flat, white, boxy hillside home, all glass in the back, city-like view. So it had really good mid-century bones, and they don't even allow, white hillside homes anymore. It's just a little too California standoff. They want the browns and the desert colors. So we kind of have this, 1960s home that's been pre-approved. So we're kind of running with the simple contemporary lines and doing, clean kitchens and clean finishes throughout. So it's a work in progress.
do you currently do any sort of real estate investing on the side, or is that something that you'd consider in the future? I know you mentioned you renovated your last home. I don't know if you're planning to sell, rent it out, etc.
Yeah, great question. We did our last home in Old Town. We had a really cool, again, 1960s townhome walk up that was just a cool neighborhood. And that's almost why we bought there. We just saw potential. And it was probably 2016 when we bought. And it became like a flipping paradise through the last 4 years. Boom. So I don't think there's one home that wasn't turned over. It's probably about 40 homes in the little neighborhood. And they turned over every single home. I mean, properties went from mid threes to over $1 million now on these townhomes. It's incredible to see where that went. So we had fun working on that. We got out a little, earlier than the big boom up in the last, year, but we did well on that. And it was such a pleasure to kind of work through those projects. And then looking forward, we have a lot of agents and developers that, they offer and talk about, do you want to get into this deal with either your current finances and your money, or do you want to potentially offer up your architecture services and get in on this? So, there's a lot of people come asking, reduced architecture rates up front for back end profits on some of these specs. So we see that. We haven't kind of gone in direction either. Sometimes, it's better to just take your money up front and reinvest it where you please and where you feel comfortable. Or, if you find the right group of guys that, you feel comfortable in that, making that investment, I think it's absolutely worth it.
Yeah, that's an interesting angle. That could be very interesting for the partnership side of things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So last question. So the name of the podcast is Mind the Growth. And the question we ask everybody at the end of the podcast is, what does the word growth mean to you?
Great question. I mean, I like that. Growth to me, it's kind of, there's personal growth. There's, in this kind of podcast, there's company growth, and, there's just growth throughout life. And I think, kind of weighing where I want to take a company, where I want to take my life, and kind of being at different companies here in the Valley is just weighing, what's important to you, whether it's financial profits or work-life balance or both, or creating an atmosphere that, everyone wants to kind of work around and work for. So I think I always kind of see myself as, working as a team. A lot of architects work as kind of a sole practitioner. And I find growth as a team, to me, is more important than growth, as an isolated business owner. So I think building that takes a lot of work and effort. But once you've grown a team, it should fuel itself, hopefully, So I think there's growth as a unit and as a company. And then there's personal growth as, a leader and providing for, not only them and their family and everything. And then just learning how to deal with business and that whole aspect, which is tough because a lot of, again, architects are in a design world, they're in the design bubble, and they might be so talented at design, but they might get, destroyed by a developer and put out of business. If you make a couple wrong deals or something sounded good and your contracts were tight up front, business is ruthless. So growth on just a multitude of levels, and, just keep working hard and see what happens.
Well, I've been told that a good attorney, so hopefully you're covered on that end.
Oh yeah,
shout out.
She's the best.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah,
this has been fun.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, and can't wait to hear it, and can't wait to, hopefully join some more in the future. We can talk about construction and real estate, whatever else you want.
Yeah, we'll have to walk through one of these houses at one point.
Yep.
That'd be amazing. Maybe once yours is done, we can check it out.
Yeah, can't wait, guys.
All right, thanks, Stratton.
Perfect.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again, man. We appreciate it.